Let's play Kerbal Space Program. So we're basically making a new career mode. This is just mainly me, recording for posterity's sake, basically, because I love the game and figured with KSP2 coming out, time to do one last playthrough. So of KSP1, at least in the full career mode. So calling this the Foundation, kind of in my head canon. The Foundation is basically a worldwide organization that basically facilitates space travel. So, and the development of space technology. So, we're basically setting up some options here for our career mode game. I like playing career mode. I think it's a little more challenging than some of the other modes. I have some custom options, such as enabling comm network, probes require control, some things like that. So you're just turning on some part G-force limits, require signal for control. Just that way, I think it adds a little more challenge to having to have relay spacecraft, etc., and enabling you to build out that early to mid-game comm network, around Kerbin and around some of the other planets as you get out there. So you're just kind of going through just a couple quick options. Let's see here. Just going through some of the mods here, seeing if there's anything enabling, disabling. I think I go through, FMRS, just basically make sure that it's on, but turning auto active at launch because you have a pop-up every time. Let's see here, just checking a couple other settings. So basically, the premise behind this, as long as I'm going through the setup here, is basically want to expand as much of the solar system as possible, kind of have a tie-in between the end of KSP1 and then the start of KSP2 with Interstellar and the colony and things, the colonies and things like that. So we'll see how many bodies we can get, colonies on and around, etc. In terms of mods, this is a pretty heavily modded gameplay. A lot of really fun part mods I've always used, such as MKS / the entire USI Constellation by Rover dude. Can't love his stuff off enough. Same thing with Nertia with his near future mods. Played with all of his. You'll definitely see some of my spacecraft and bigger launch vehicles using some of those things as we go along. A lot of other quality of life mods as well. I didn't want to put too many in here because I'm running on a little older PC, so I didn't want to hit the RAM limit or anything. Let's see, I don't have any modded planets or what have you. In terms, you can see Scatterer and really BlackRock's Patreon-specific clouds right now, volumetric clouds there in the background with Eve Redux. So you'll see some shots of those here as we go along. Absolutely gorgeous mod. I'm looking forward to the day that is free, that everybody can sit and partake in it. Instead of having to go through his Patreon. So, otherwise, we'll see how long our game lasts here in terms of, obviously we'll play as long as the save doesn't get corrupted or anything and performance doesn't get too laggy. We'll just see how it goes here. Just setting up some stuff for fuel boil off, making sure that's turned on. Because again, I think it's, I don't want to play quite as arcadey as stock can be sometimes, and I don't want to go full hardcore real scale solar system and Principia and RP1. So I kind of tweak some of these things myself. Basically making sure turning on some of the other launch sites, etc. So kind of as we fly over them, we can discover them. I guess maybe I screwed up one of the settings here and turned it on by default, but in our head canon, we won't use any of those other launch sites until we actually fly over and unlock them in the traditional fashion. See here, I think about have everything set up. I think I turned off extra ground stations just because I want to force those relay networks and things early game, and I want some of that difficulty of going through and setting up your own, basically making sure you get your early satellites up. Otherwise, you can lose contact as you go around the planet. I think that's a little bit more fun and challenging. Let's see, get started up here. I've cut the load times, all these black screen load times here in future parts of the video, so you won't have to see that again. I guess I missed this one by mistake. So we'll go through early game, nothing, no upgraded buildings, none of that. Just configuring KEI. So basically, we have to use the experiments once before we can One mod here I forgot to mention is unmanned before manned. So basically, or unkerballed before kerbal. So basically, you go through it, starts you off with a couple early game probes and kind of starts you off down that track instead of starting off with a command pod and then you can already get kerbals into space. Like I said, I play a little more, just kind of realistically. Here I'm just checking that basically the kerbals are all set up properly and, you know, the veteran C is turned off because I like, again, a little bit more of that hardcore gameplay. See, checking if there's any more options I want to set because once, you know, if you don't set these things right early on, kind of is hard to go back and do them later. So just double checking some of them, you know, windows and Alright, yeah, let's get into things. So, opening up the tech tree here, as you can see, with modular launchpads, there's a lot of different launchpad upgrades on the left. We'll kind of go through those as we need them, no sense overcrowding our part window too early. Just kind of scrolling through, seeing some of this stuff. In the future, most of this is basically sped up for your convenience. Basically picking up a couple early game contracts here for just gathering science, or for launching our first vessel and gathering science data. As soon as we get that one done, we'll go back, escape the atmosphere. So we're going to start off with just a real basic sounding rocket. And then all the building stuff here is sped up by 3 times just because, well, it can be boring to sit and watch you click through and obsess over parts all the time. So real basic 2-stage rocket here, a sounding rocket from USI mod. Otherwise, you know, really early sounding rocket, you can sit and do something bigger as well. Just some real basic experiments here starting out as well. Just trying to go through, put a real basic parachute, put a avionics core, an antenna, you know, real basic couple fins. So early game, there is no SAS or any kind of torque producing components. So you basically have to spin stabilize everything. So, you know, that's one thing you'll see me do is slap a couple of experiments on and put the fins on at a slight angle to get it spinning. It works pretty well. You'll see here as we get later into the episode, it comes back to bite me a little bit and I kind of give up a little bit and unlock a couple new tech parts and make it a little easier on myself because the spin stabilized, you know, you with no real good way of control, it's kind of hit or miss. You know, you can do it really well, but you know, you can kind of really tweak things and it's it gets hard, right? I mean, you've got to use 4 fins for all of your spin stabilized. Early game, you know, you're limited to 30 parts in the VAB originally, so it kind of really starts to bite your part limit here. So, but I'm calling my sounding rocket series Bounder, just because we're bounding up into space, right? So, all right, we're out on the launch pad. Let's light this thing. Taking a couple beauty screenshots here, appreciating the volumetric clouds. We'll get this thing going. I think I was checking some screen, making sure the screenshots, so I was hitting the right screenshot button. I was pressing F12 like I was on Steam, and it's F1 in KSP. So there, now we're back, and let's go. See the spin stabilization taking off here. You're going to see some explosive separation here. Didn't put a coupler on between the two, so you can kind of just light off the upper motor and it'll destroy the bottom one. So about punching through the cloud layer here, looking beautiful. I need to get up to Apogee and run some science experiments and start getting some basic data so we can start unlocking some new tech parts. That's such a cool shot. You know, so when you stage, you know, you see all the panels fall off and everything and kind of fling outwards from the centripetal acceleration. It's always cool. Now, I'm kind of panicking here at this part because I thought one of my the science mod allowed you to one-click run all the science, and so I'm clicking through trying to find that button as I'm falling downwards, trying to get all the science I can. I realize it's just through the part action menu instead. So I just run all the experiments, gather all the data, and then start barreling, corkscrewing towards the ground again. And flight scenes like this are going to be sped up by about 2 times for especially repetitive parts, just because it's fun for me to watch. I could sit and watch some of this stuff all day long, but no sense subjecting you all to it. You see, you got some world contract or world milestone rewards there. Also, here we launched our first vessel, and then we're also, as soon as we recover this, we'll get our science payload or our gather scientific data contract as well. And quick save and then recover the vessel. I always enable quick saves. I don't think they're cheaty just because there's so many ways that can go wrong with stuff. So I always quick save at the launch and landing of any mission. So we're going back in here. Got our 2 contracts done. So we're picking up Orbit Kerbin and Escape the Atmosphere. So we'll go through. Actually, I'd hoped you'll see the next few launches are going to be fairly challenging. I figured I could just, in Kerbal fashion, go bigger booster, right? And that didn't always work out to escape the atmosphere here. I'd hoped to escape the atmosphere with sounding rocket parts, but you'll see I need to get a little bit bigger for that. Just spending some of our science points. We unlocked a bunch of science points from that mission. So coming in here, just so unlocking things in sequence, kind of my house rule is you have to complete everything in one of the columns of the tech tree, each one of the tiers, before you can move on to the next one. Otherwise, it kind of gets spammy, I think, when you can just go down the rocketry tree, and then you can get, huge boosters before you've barely made an airplane. So that's just I saw there's a YouTuber I watch, that's one of his house rules, so I just do the same thing. It really does, it just makes you progress through the entire tech tree. Every time I enter a new column or a new tier, I try to go for science parts, just because, the more science parts you unlock, the more science you can do, which helps you unlock the next tiers faster. So I try to prioritize science, and then I go for rocketry stuff. You can see one of the things there I was trying to pick up is the protective aeroshell. So I like doing again, unkerbal before kerbal with the satellite parts. Just gives you a way to put a basic payload fairing around your vehicle, so you can cut the air resistance on it as you're launching into space. I think Procedural Fairings is a little ways down the line. I love that mod. I've got that installed. I actually prefer that to the stock fairings, just because it gives you some more bounds to work with instead of having these really crazy shapes. I like just using basic clamshell, fairings and things, not the confetti ones from stock. So, trying to see if there's any, RCS torque parts, but not yet. We got to go another tech tier to get some of that stuff. And here, grabbing the Science Junior, and grabbing the Mystery Goo container so we can start doing some more science stuff. So it's time to go sit, and did I forget? Oh, yep, I already got Escape the Atmosphere, so I guess I forgot to grab this one the first time. Otherwise, go back and we'll try to make Bounder Mark II here. Give it a little more thrust, a little more juice. As you can see, I'm trying to make this a 3-stage design now. Take the basic Mark I and basically put a big booster underneath it. See if I can get this thing up into space. And you can just you can see little challenges with that. Tried tripling the thrust. Tried putting the spin control on it, but then you're going to start running into part limits here because we only have 30 parts to work with. And you like I said, another 2 or 3 launches of this, we'll finally get there, but it's a little bit of a challenge. Just working out the staging a little bit, making sure everything's set the way I want it. There's, never had a staging issue yet. So just basically going through here. Adjusting the thrust limiter because I don't need this thing quite rocketing off the pad because it's too fast. With the spin stabilized, you can actually throw it off balance. And I think that's actually what happened in one of these upcoming launches. So just tuning it, to a proper thrust to weight ratio. You don't need them super crazy. I think that's the problem. Sometimes people have too high a thrust to weight ratio, and they wonder why their rocket's kind of uncontrollable and likes to go all over the place. So, yeah, as you see here, I hit my 35 out of 30 parts. So I'm going back trying to see, okay, what can I cut? Maybe trying to drop some science experiments, trying to take off some of the fins. You'll see that comes back to bite me actually this launch when I took off those small-sized fins. I got it down to just 30 out of 30 parts. Redoing and checking the staging again. And also, all these videos are gonna be post commentary, just because I have enough, focus trying to play the game anyways. Besides trying to go sit and talk as well, have something intelligent to say. So, Bounder Mark II. Let's see how she flies here. Again, checking screenshots. I'll have this figured out one of these days. Oop, and then the camera wanted to sit and try to do something funny, so here we are. So you start spinning up nicely, looking good. To go really fast. The center engine's going to burn out, and I'm like, okay, I'll just... Oop, nope, there we go. And it flips all over. I'm like, okay, well, I can still get some science data, so let me, shoot the rocket in a general direction and fire and let it go. And see if I can hit some of the other biomes around the KSC. Because KSC, there's shores, there's ocean. If you go towards the east, go to the west, you start getting, I believe it's the lowlands? Or, no, grasslands. Grasslands. I'm like, well, let me try to hit something else and at least, not have it be a completely wasted launch. And I didn't want to fire that other motor because I didn't want it to hurl us into the ground. So I just quick rearranged the staging and popped the panels and let ourselves coast down here. And there go our booster remnants you can hear in the background. Basically hitting the ground and exploding. Quick run all the things. You can see data from Kerbal shores. So we actually have, there's landed data, there's low altitude data, high altitude data, and then you're getting into the space stuff. So we did the low altitude on our first launch, on the Mark 1 launch. The Mark 2, we've got this, or we've got the landed. You see I'm checking here to see how much does it cost to upgrade the VAB to handle our 30 parts, or to handle more than 30 parts, and I realize I'm quite a bit short on funds. So we'll do some more contracts here. And kind of put that on the back burner for another day. So now I go back and try to rearrange the fins again because I realize I need some fins on that middle stage. So I'm trying to figure out maybe if I put some bigger fins, have a little bit more stability effect, get us spinning up maybe a little bit more, and try to do with 3 or 4 fins, and try to add maybe another science part or so on there just because, you don't want to waste all the science stuff. The 2.1 version, so... Just checking staging again, and we'll give this one a shot. Yeah, I'm just checking the location of the center lift and center of pressure for that middle stage, seeing where that's at. And we'll try it again here, see what happens. Nope, even worse than last time. Flips out pretty early, trying to say, okay, well, let's salvage this launch, let's get her going in another direction. You can see the middle stage flies really well, flies pretty much like an arrow in this, the middle and upper stage. So I'm trying to, okay, let's hit the grasslands this time and see we can maybe salvage some of this mission. I don't think the motor is going to burn out before I get too low to the ground, so I want to pop that parachute early, because I'd like to at least get some science. And well, surprise, surprise, we're still over Kerbal shore, so no science this time, unfortunately. But, sounding rockets are pretty cheap in the early game, so it's not like I lost, crashed a big Apollo mission or an interplanetary something or other. So can't complain too hard. It's just a learning experience. This is raw Kerbal Space Program. I don't really revert launches unless there's a really good reason for something. Just because to me it's a part of the game. So learn through failure. That's the Kerbal way. So at this point, I basically realized that the 3 booster design just isn't going to cut it. And I basically start trying to, well, let's go single stick. and put the fins on the lower stage, kind of take the Mark 1, go back to a little bit of the Mark 1 design language, kind of a center stick, angled fins, seeing if this one can sit in, I'm kind of questioning, is the center of pressure, that blue ball, is that center of pressure a little too low? And you start noticing, I think it's on this launch, on the middle stage, I realize the center of pressure, or the center of mass, the yellow ball is still pretty low. You want to have the center of lift, or the blue, or sometimes a center of lift for airplanes, center of pressure for rockets. It's basically the same thing. It's where the aerodynamic forces act through. You always want that to be behind the center of mass, where all the weight's concentrated in the rocket. And so I'm kind of playing around here again with the thrust limiters and things, trying to keep them all kind of low. You don't need them super crazy, because I thought, well, maybe I had a little too high of thrust, and when it started spinning up and getting into some higher, maybe some transonic, supersonic, all of a sudden maybe that was causing my issue. And let's see if I was able to fix it this time. Starts off well, stable, starts spinning up pretty nicely, looking stable, so I'm thinking, okay, this is gonna maybe go good. Wait to see how burnout happens here. See if we can get some, I'm thinking maybe this will get up to, 50 or 60, maybe that 65 limits. We're getting really close up into space. Coming up on burnout here. Stage the second one, also looking really good. I'm really pleased at this point with how it looks. I'm kind of going to pan around and look at some of the nice cloud stuff, turn off the UI and get some screenshots, because those clouds look absolutely gorgeous. See, I turn on the orbit view on the bottom left so I can get an idea where my apogee is going to be, just for a rough prediction of where my altitude is going to end up at. And not as high as I would have liked. It's been a while since I've played KSP, and I kind of forgot how dense some of the atmosphere is. I was probably going through the lower atmosphere a little too fast, and it was causing some excess drag loss. So I only got up to about 15, 16 kilometers here. So just, like, well, okay, we'll sit and try doing the high atmosphere. I couldn't remember where high atmosphere, so I think high atmosphere is like 30 kilometers. So I unfortunately had another wasted launch here. At least I think I got the Mark II design down now, to basically go and try to maybe get a little higher on the next launch here. I'm like, okay, let's try to glide this, see if this thing glides. Or you can see it actually kind of settling into a gliding orientation just because of with those double payload bays. Like, well, maybe I'll get lucky and it'll glide itself out over the water, and I can sit and get some science that way. And unfortunately, it's starting to head towards the black monolith over here to the north of KSC, but I'm aiming for the water, and nah, at this point, it's just not going to get there. So I decided to pop the chute and just take the loss and try again the next launch here. So at this point, I think I basically decided to scrap this kind of layout design, and I start saying, okay, scrap the sounding rocket boosters. Let's try to maybe go for liquid, or try to go for something a little bit bigger. I think these are the .625, if I remember correctly, and I'm gonna try to go to the next size up sounding rockets. So that's why I pulled out the bigger payload bay. I'm like, well, okay, I'll try to keep some parts of it and just kind of stripping them before I throw some of the smaller stuff away. Putting the new fancy mystery goo container on there, the bigger parachute. Basically loaded up, so the next side, this next diameter size up actually will allow us to get by with fewer motors. So we won't have to have it kind of as tall and slender. I think that turned out to be my problem before, is it was a little too tall and slender, and made it real wobbly then. If you started pulling a little bit of angle of attack at all, which, again, early game, you really don't have any torque or attitude control of any kind, no RCS thrusters, so it's really hard to sit and control that stuff yourself. So I thought, okay, let's go simple. Let's maybe do a couple small boosters on the side, some liquid boosters, so I could sit and control how much thrust they're putting out, maybe a little more, maybe put some gimbal. I think these are the cog wheels, I believe, the LVO5s, which have a gimbal on it. So I'm like, okay, I'll have some roll control, I'll have some attitude control a little bit at least during the boost stage. Maybe that can help get me through some of the problematic lower atmosphere and get me, if I can keep it stable up until the upper atmosphere, that should be pretty good. So just recoloring a couple things here quick using those stretched Oscar fuel tanks. I'm not sure if those are a part of making history or they're a part of the Restock parts mod. So love Restock, can't sit and plug that mod enough. If I had only one mod I really had to stick with, it would be Restock, just because it basically redoes all the stock parts, makes them all nice, consistent design language. Actually, I think it has a little bit better RAM usage as well, not quite as much memory on those textures. So trying to figure out what I should use for a lower control surface, because I decided to throw away the boosters. Do I do some small gimbal engines for like some roll control, like some of your early space launches? And I decide, nah, I'll be okay. If it starts spinning, that's not a big deal. So I just go with just a single launch. You see me here playing with the modular Launchpads, trying to figure out what basic launcher I want. I'm trying to go make it look pretty. So basically, I added a basic milk stool stand, a little, let's see here, what's a service tower, have a couple little umbilicals. Really don't need to. They do count against your part limit, so you don't really need them, but I think it makes it look just a little bit cooler. Like I said, this playthrough, I'm not trying to go for, minimalism or anything. I'm just like, let's kind of do some stuff that looks really nice. So you see, I'm just kind of playing around with some of the different options. I haven't played around with this mod actually before. I used to use just the standard, the stock launch clamps, and I'm like, let's try to do something a little bit prettier, especially for your later launches here in the series. Might as well make them look nice. Can do some really cool like fall away umbilicals and crew access arms and things like that. Just testing staging. So let's launch this and see what happens. See how the first launch of the Mark 2.3 goes. And whoops. As luck would have it, I did not have a high enough thrust in the lower stage. I guess I forgot to check that part of my staging. And I'm sitting here thinking, what happened? Why is that, what happened there? So as you'll see, I can't remember if it's this launch or the next launch. Basically, I realized that the Kerbal Engineer Redux, basically mod that gives you delta V. That one, yeah, KER right there in the center stage. It's telling you vacuum delta V in the compact mode. You have to click atmosphere to sit and actually get the atmosphere reading. And that's what I realized at a certain point, decided to, that was my problem. So I needed to look at the atmosphere value, because you're starting off in the atmosphere. So try to do a little bit, maybe reusable booster design a little bit. Put some parachutes on those little solids, just a little bit to get us off the pad. Because I know the center has enough thrust away, you just got to let it burn for a little bit, kind of a sustainer-like design. And I got to, flip those boosters around to the sides, because I didn't want the umbilical falling on them for realism reasons. Good off the pad launch this time. Feeling confident. Not used to having no spin control, so I'm having to actually pay attention to where the prograde marker is on the Navball down there, and trying to keep myself going straight up pretty much. We're not trying to go for orbit with these yet. I'm trying to kind of do it in stages. So we need to escape the atmosphere first, which means we need to get above 69,000 something meters. I forget exactly what it is. So basically round it to 70. It's like 69.9 or something. So I just call it 70. Give myself just a little pitch over. I just kind of go away from the KSE, because if your rockets fall on the buildings, they can destroy the buildings. Staging here goes well. Had a little bit of shimmy on the, once those boosters separated, but I got it under control. Really trying to sit and kind of play with things here and just keep it nice and straight. Don't want to sit and go too fast, not too slow, not too much angle of attack to start flipping out. Kind of get distracted there watching the clouds, and well, it started to flip on me, so I was able to catch it in time, luckily. Coming up on staging here, let's see how this shrimp booster upper stage goes, and see if it gets us up there, because our apogee is already at about 30 something kilometers. I'm like, oh, this is looking good. Oh no, it's not looking good. Not looking good at all. Oh boy, this is a bad day. And we proceed to spin. So I basically say, well, that's a bust. Let me sit and jettison the fairings, try to maybe get some, if I can break 30 kilometers, as what my apoapsis is telling me on the lower left, I can get some more, at least high altitude signs, not have it be a total waste of a launch. I'm trying to, get inside. There goes one of the payload fairings. I can get inside and click it now and try to click one of those experiments and run it. But we're falling. We're basically we're falling. So, you can't turn off the solid boosters in this game. So you're just gonna have to let it burn out, and we'll just spin and fall to the ground here. So I'm trying to record some. There's a couple science readings I didn't get before. So just at this point, now we did clear the water this time. So, but it's really easy to get your lower science. So there's no point in going through sitting, not getting your high altitude science or your, I think, what is it, maybe mystery goo? I'm not sure what one we got. We didn't get before. Maybe it was pressure. I'm not sure. Oh yeah, I can see the mystery goo container on there on the left side. So we got some mystery goo science, which is at least it's something. I can always roll a craft out to the launch pad, take a reading, roll it back, recover it. I'm sitting here thinking to myself, boy, that's 3 failed launches already trying to get out of the atmosphere. I don't remember KSP-1 being that hard. That's just the challenge of, that's what I like about career mode, is the challenge of small part limits early on, and no control authority stuff. So I decided to upgrade here and go up to the, there's that next Probodobodine core has SAS on it, so it can at least hold attitude for you. You still need engine gimbal or RCS or something to actually give you torque. And you see I'm looking here at the inline reaction wheels, the next stage up. I decided not to spend all my science points.